Hey, Brennan, how you doing today?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Today, we're going to talk about organizing content on your website. And specifically, we want to get into those businesses who have been blogging probably for years. And now they've got hundreds or maybe thousands of posts on their site. And the site maybe is not doing as well, and they're not sure what to write about next, and they're not sure if they've already written about something. This is a big issue, right?
It's a huge issue, Mike. The worst case that I ever had of it is a client. I don't work with them anymore because we actually helped them grow so much. They sold the business 2 years ago. But we got to a point where we had around 6,000 blog posts on the website. And, that's a lot of content. A lot of it was dating back before I started working with them. We worked with them for about 6 or 7 years. But whenever you get into the several hundred or thousands of pieces of content, you're going to have opportunity for improvement there to go in and clean up that content, to look at it, examine it, and really try to figure out what you're doing. And it's a daunting task just because of the sheer volume of content that's there. And it really requires quite a bit of time and quite a bit of organization, as well as some skill to know what content you should keep versus what you should modify, and kind of how to go about actually organizing that much information.
So it sounds like step one, if you're a company who's got just an expansive website, step one is to have someone like you come in with fresh eyes and audit what exists already, right?
Yeah, step one, Mike, is an inventory. So what do we even have here, right? We make a list of every single post. Sometimes we can export that from the database. And then, what we typically do is we start going through and mapping that and finding, hey, what's similar, what's maybe covering the exact same topic from a slightly different angle. And we'll typically create what we call content buckets, where we're then taking, we're saying, hey, these 10 posts all go in one bucket because they're all kind of the same thing. That's kind of step one, is to organize that. And then from there, Mike, what we're doing is we're figuring out, out of those 10 pieces of content that are all covering related topics, what's our money term? Like, what's our number one keyword that we actually want to rank for that has the most traffic? And we put together a very strong piece of content then around that term. And then kind of the third step, Mike, is we take a look at the other topics that maybe don't support that money term. And this is where it just takes a little bit of experience and skill, but we try to figure out, are there enough related terms that are different enough from that money term that it makes sense to still have some of these other posts? And if so, how do we clean them up so Google's not confused as to which post should actually rank for that main money keyword?
So first step, of course, get organized, and then you're looking at consolidating things, improving things, lengthening, I imagine, is important.
Yeah, it depends on how old the content is. Like, we've had clients that, they have blog posts that were written pre-2010. And in that case, they have, 100 or 200 words. Length didn't matter back then, right? So, it really just depends on how old the content is, how long it is, how it was written. Some people wrote content with, automated keyword spinning tools back when that used to work. So is it duplicate content? Is it good content? Is it too keyword dense? Does it have too many hyperlinks in it? There's a whole list of things, Mike, that we're looking at, specific to each piece of content. But, bigger picture, the question is, regardless of what that content is, because obviously we can rewrite it, the bigger picture is figuring out, do we even have a need for that piece of content in the first place? Is it too repetitious that, if we have this post and that post, are they going to compete with one another and Google's not going to know which one to rank?
Right. And so I know you've dealt with this multiple times. How does this show up? How does this present itself originally? Is it just a feeling that a company's like, hey, we've got too many blog posts, or is it a decline in traffic? Like, what are the warning signs that it's time for like some organization on the content?
Yeah, there's different warning signs. It's not a one size fit all, but decline in traffic is a definite warning sign. And that's probably the most common, because a lot of times people are asleep at the wheel until they notice that it's impacting their wallet, which is a decline in traffic and revenue, right? So that's probably the most common one. But I think there's signs before that. It's just that most business owners aren't knowing what to look for before that. So the signs before that, Mike, are, when you're in an industry that's fairly straightforward, if you have thousands of posts, you have repetition. I can guarantee it, right? You have too much. So the number of posts can be a red flag. If you get to where you're having thousands and thousands of posts, you probably have too many. When's the last time you actually looked at your content and did an audit of it? That's a big red flag. If you haven't gone back and looked at your old posts in the last 2 or 3 years, I can guarantee you have things that could be cleaned up, right? So that's a red flag, just the timeliness of when you last looked at it. The other big red flag that I see a lot, because we're diligently watching our clients, is the wrong page is ranking for a keyword. So we have some great page on our website, but it's not ranking. Google's ranking some other page. And that means to me that there's confusion that we're creating within Google's algorithm as to what page Google should actually rank for a keyword.
Yeah, you and I just faced that with an HVAC contractor that we work with, and
we did, and we got it cleaned up nice and fast once we saw it. But yeah, it's very common. And sometimes the other thing I look for, Mike, in that same realm is you'll see the page change, which means that Google's actually ranking both pages, and they're kind of jumping around in the rankings as to which one ranks higher.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that when you do start to clean things up, you might rank for fewer keywords, but you rank higher and you produce more leads, right?
That's the key. And ultimately we're tracking in order your rankings, right? We want to get our keywords ranked, which we then want to drive traffic, which ultimately we want to drive leads and revenue for the business. And so that's the biggest impact, is that when we get this kind of mess of content cleaned up, you might rank for less terms, but you're going to rank for more terms higher, which is going to drive you more traffic, more leads, and more revenue.
Right. Well, it sounds like an exhaustive, overwhelming process that could take several months or a year or more, right?
It's a lot of work, Mike, and we treat each case kind of on a case-by-case scenario. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how much content there is to clean up. It depends on the client's budget. Some clients have the budget to just jump in and do it as a one-time project. Others, we just kind of incorporate it into maybe our monthly SEO, where we say, hey, we're going to clean up X amount of these per month. Other clients, if they come to us and we're maybe building them a new website, we'll do an audit before we build that website, and we'll say, hey, you guys have 10,000 pages on your website, but only 50 of them are actually driving traffic for you. And so that's very common. We did probably a dozen websites last year, Mike, where we had clients that had, 4 to 5 figures and pages of page counts. And, through doing an audit before we build in their website, we said, hey, save the money. We can throw all these in the garbage because, they're just placeholder pages, they're junk, they're filler, and they're not driving any traffic for you.
So less is more, quality over quantity.
That is correct. That is correct. It's a good way to put it.
Well, if you're watching this video and you're just overwhelmed by the amount of pages on your site, or if you have, run out of topics to talk about, give us a call and we'll get you started on an audit and hopefully get things reorganized, get you back on track and increase leads.
That's our goal.
All right. Thanks, Brennan.
Thank you, Mike.